first thing I say to them is, I need to know what your visa status is. So the folks that I'm working with, even though they're all foreign born, they're those who are citizens like me. They're those who are on work visas, and work visas will let you stay here 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever, depending on your type of visa. And then you can go back, or you can stay here if you end up getting the green card. And then there's a third group who are what you'd call residents or permanent residents, so they're green card holders.
So what does financial freedom mean to you?
For me, it really means being able to work in an industry that I absolutely love, and being able to help people where I really can make an impact day by day.
You're listening to the Her Money Story podcast with your host, Felicia Gopaul. Every woman has a story that explains her relationship to money and finances, and a woman's story about money shapes her actions, both positive and not, for years to come. This podcast is for any woman learning how to take care of her money so that her money can take care of her now and into the future.
When I first started considering changing from being an accountant to a financial advisor, I took the time to interview 16 different CFP professionals. In my ignorance at the time, I kind of thought that everybody who was a CFP professional did the same thing. But I wanted to talk to CFP professionals because the media was telling me at the time that they were the gold standard for financial planners. And I, of course, wanted to be in the gold standard for the profession. And as I was talking to those 16 different people, what I was finding is they were doing 16 different things. And what I've learned over the 27 years that I've been in the industry is there's a lot of different ways to specialize. And this was really driven home for me when I did a talk for the Kellogg Women's Alumni Group in Los Angeles. And there was a woman who was a Chinese national who reached out to me and said, hey, you know what? I would love to talk to you about whether or not I'm a good fit for your practice. And as we sat down and talked, it became really obvious to me I was not the one for her. And it was really a couple of things that really drove that point home for me. Now, I'm actually married to a gentleman who is not originally from this country. But when me and him met, he had gone down the path of becoming a citizen. And so he was really at the completion stages. He was just, checking the last couple of boxes to become a citizen. But she was actually pretty early in the stage of getting her visa so that she could work here in the United States and all the rest of that. And I really had no idea how to work with her. And I really had to be okay with that, because what's become clear to me is not everybody who I meet is a good fit for me, and I'm not a good fit for everybody. I was not a good fit for her, and we both recognized that pretty quickly. What became also obvious is I am part of a CFP mastermind group, and I had a really fantastic colleague in the group who would be the perfect person because she specializes in working with foreign-born individuals, helping them understand the process, because she's been through it, of the visa process and getting connected to the right people, as well as, the finances part of it. Because there are concerns and needs that they have that are very different from a native-born person, and she'll talk about that. So I am Felicia Gopaul. I am a wealth coach for professional, educated, and accomplished women and entrepreneurial women, and I'm your personal wealth builder. Welcome to the Her Money Story podcast, and I want you to keep listening to learn about how foreign individuals can work with a financial planner. So who do I have with me today? I have my good friend, Jane Mepham, who is the founder and principal advisor for Eglin Financial Advisors. She's a CFP candidate. And all that means is there is a process that you have to go to become a CFP, and she has not finished her process. That doesn't mean she's not good. That means that she's good. She's taken her test. But she's just got to take some, I think it's just a couple of months. Jane, and you can tell us a little bit more about that. And then she will be able to complete the box that the CFP board needs in order to call her a CFP. She's also a fee-only advisor, and she's the recent recipient of the Ken Gillespie Legacy Fund 2020 scholarship. She's located in Austin, Texas, but she works with foreign-born families nationwide. So Jane, welcome.
Thank you, Felicia. That was a great introduction.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure to do it. But anyways, on your website, Jane, you say that it takes special strength to move from your community to a new land. Share a little bit about your personal journey to the United States, which I believe started with a one-way ticket.
Absolutely, you're right. My parents bought me a one-way ticket and said, Jane, get on the plane, go to America and pursue your dream. Literally, I was in my early 20s. And what it came down to was I really wanted to pursue computer science, and we really didn't have that back in Kenya, at least at that point, or schools that I could attend. And I really, really wanted to just go out and pursue what was out there. And my family, my parents were very supportive. They've always been very supportive about what help you get the education that you want, because we believe education is the best thing that we can give you. And so, because I figured this was where I was going to get the education, they helped me come to America, literally bought me a one-way ticket and said, off you go.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think that's interesting because you talk about how important education was to you as well as your family. And that's certainly something that I have found from my own husband, who is also foreign born. Him and his siblings all came to the United States for education because, the United States has got a reputation as having some of the best schools. And oftentimes, and what he said is, my husband wanted to be an aerospace engineer. They did not have that in Trinidad. And so he could not go to schools in Trinidad and get that. The only place he was going to get that, or the place that they selected to have him come, was here in the United States. And so I think that is something that is really very different. But I know that it wasn't just about coming to the United States for education. There's a process to coming here for your education. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because I imagine that some of my listeners might be at some stage in that process. And could you just kind of help them walk that? Because I understand that it's pretty complicated and it's pretty detailed. And if you do things incorrectly, it could have an impact.
Absolutely. I kind of joke about when I say they bought me a one-way ticket, but to get to that point, where they're buying me the one-way ticket, I had to apply to the different schools here, and I applied to a couple of different schools. They make you take, it's called TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language, and you have to meet a certain score. And it's a lot of back and forth paperwork between you, the school, the embassy. And of course, those days, actually, there wasn't really email from what I recall. And so you go back and forth, the school finally agrees to enroll you, and they send you what's called an F1 visa paperwork, which you then take to the embassy. And it's another long process of appointments, showing up at different times. And finally, if you're one of the lucky ones, they'll stamp that on your passport. Once that's stamped on your passport, then you can go back to your family. And in my case, it takes a village. Went back to my family. My whole village helped me raise the money that we needed for the air ticket and the first year's tuition. And so it is a long, drawn out process. Once you get here, there's certain things you need to do to make sure you stay legal. And I can talk about that if you're interested.
So I'm going to assume that the people who are listening are going to be able to kind of navigate that, or they can reach out to you and maybe you can help them understand that whole process. But I just really want to to talk about what do foreign-born individuals have to navigate that native-born people don't even have to think about. I mean, in terms of the finances. So, as I said, this Chinese citizen, I wasn't able to, I understood, financial planning wise, what I could do with her. But there were things that I didn't know about her visa that, she couldn't work until the visa was approved. Like there was like all this sort of stuff that I had no understanding of when I first sat down with her.
So when I start working with prospects or clients, there's a lot about values. But before we get to that, the first thing I say to them is, I need to know what your visa status is. So the folks that I'm working with, even though they're all foreign born, they're those who are citizens like me. They're those who are on work visas, and work visas will let you stay here 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever, depending on your type of visa. And then you can go back, or you can stay here if you end up getting the green card. And then there's a third group who you'd call residents or permanent residents, so they're green card holders. So the first thing I need to understand and know is, what is your visa status? As soon as you tell me what kind of visa you have, right away I know there's things we can't do, there's things we need to be doing. And it all depends again on what you're planning to go back or whether you're planning to stay here. So once I know what your visa status is, then we can talk about, for example, things like tax planning, tax filing itself. How do you file taxes as a foreign-born person, again, depending on your visa? So that's always a big thing, and that's always the leading question. The other challenges I find is, as soon as you come into the country, you have no idea where to open a bank, for example. You have no idea what this whole credit business is and how important that is, and how you go about getting yourself with a credit score, that type of thing. So there's all those challenges that we deal with. And again, it all goes back to your visa status, your values, and how long you're planning on being here.
I remember my father was in the military, so we did a lot of traveling around the world. And I know that there were different things that we could do in different countries, and we called them different things. And
yes.
I imagine that also kind of comes into play. In general, the Asian families that I have worked with they're great savers. So, talking to them about credit cards and all the rest of that sort of stuff, there's like a mind shift that they've got to make in order to even do that.
It is a complete mindset. And so what I say to the prospects and clients is, I completely understand where you were, because you or me 5, 10 years ago, when I came in, I was in your same exact situation. Now we're in a new, different country. They use different terminologies, even something as simple as a checking account. I had no idea what that was, because we call it a current account where I'm coming from. And so I'll walk them through the journey saying, this is now the US. This is how they do things here. This is where you're coming from. Let's help you walk the journey and match all those things. And we can talk about the values and what you can do versus what you can't do. But I think it does make them feel like I'm a safe person to talk to, since I've been through the journey as well.
Absolutely. Because as I said, I was completely unfamiliar with the journey, except as an observer watching my husband at the tail end of that. For my husband and his family, education was an important value. Do you find that is a common value with a lot of the foreign-born families that you work with? What other things do they value? And that's not to say that people who are native-born do not, but I just think that sometimes it's more leading than it would be for a native-born person.
So to education, I say yes, yes, yes. That is so key for a lot of immigrants, a lot of foreign-born families. Look at me, I came here because of education. Absolutely. The US has some of the best schools in the world, period. And our parents, they always said to me, if I can help you get educated, that's the best inheritance I can give you. That's the best gift that I can give you. So I've obviously carried that over as part of my family values. And I find, again, a lot of the immigrant families, education is so, so key. And so that ends up, as you said, being one of the leading things that we talk about. So a lot of people will approach me because they're trying to figure out what to do with education. We'll talk about other things. Family is also very, very important. And as you said, it is important to native born families here. But what you find is with the foreign families, most of it tends to be extended families. So your brothers, your sisters, your nieces, your nephews, versus in the US, the native born families, it's more around just the nuclear family.
Yeah, that can be a big difference. And I was sharing that one of the things that my husband established for me when we first got together is that if we ever won the lottery, it was going to be shared with the family. And he was talking the extended family. Whereas, the way that I was raised, if we won the lottery, now I don't play, so that there's that problem. But if we ever won the lottery, it would just be the nuclear family that would share in that. But he already told me, just kind of coming in the door, hey, if we ever win the lottery, I'm sharing it with all my cousins, my nieces, my nephews. Everybody's going to get a piece. And that was a very different mentality. But it was one that I had to, agree to, and kind of wrap my mind around, because it was a different way to think about family and what was important and who we were going to take care of.
And you're right. It also happens that, like your exact same situation, if a foreign-born person is married to a native-born person, those are some of the dynamics that they need to figure out between the two of them. And so, again, going back to their cultural upbringing, what they consider to be important, and why, the whole idea of the money scripts does help bring some of that to the surface and help them, again, I think of it as a journey, continue on the journey of their financial freedom together. Absolutely.
Well, I think that that's one of the things that we both bring is we start to ask good questions. And if we are asking questions, then we start dialogues that perhaps spouses might not have already had. And it would bring to the surface things that, it's just like, I believe this and you believe this. And now we've got to at least have a conversation about this and this, which is something that if you're just living life, you might not get around to it until you're in a crisis situation. So I think that that's the advantage of working with professionals like you and I, is we're going to ask them some questions that perhaps that hadn't been, they hadn't previously considered.
That's true. Another question I find that's really challenging is when it comes to things around estate planning. Once again, it all depends on your visa status, your residence status, and what you want to do. So if I have one person saying, I want to retire back home, and now I know if a foreign-born person says retire back home, I know exactly what they're talking about. They want to go back to where they were born, versus one person wants to retire here. We obviously have some challenges, but it's also talking about the assets that you have, the assets in that country versus the assets here. So that really becomes a very big part of the ongoing conversation, because I also do find we still want to invest back home. And I have to talk to people all the time about the US wants to know about all your assets all over the world. So we really need to bring up some of those issues. And you're right, if you don't know what you don't know, you may not be asking some of those questions. So I agree with you. We got to ask really good questions.
Oh my goodness, there's some stories that I could tell about that, because I think people without our knowledge think, well, what happens back home happens back home. I don't need to tell the US about what's happening back home because it's happening back home. But that's not how the US thinks about these things. And then you've got and working with a professional like us will bring that to their attention. and so that they could be in compliance, as opposed to in not understanding the way that the US thinks about their citizens and those people who are living in the US.
That is true. The US is probably one of the maybe 4 countries right now, 2 countries in the world that wants to know about your worldwide income at any point. And so you're absolutely right. I have to keep asking those questions, saying, what do you have over there? Because the US wants to know about it, and they will know about it. And if we don't comply, you can get some really heavy penalties that you don't have to pay. You just need to let them. But again, it's knowing what questions to ask you. Again, you're right.
Absolutely. So how does a person who is foreign born benefit from working with you who is foreign born as opposed to working with me?
Love you, Felicia. You pointed out right at the beginning that there's some things you never even thought about. So the fact that I've gone through the same journey is so key, because I remember asking everybody that would talk to me, what am I supposed to be doing with my taxes the first year? Where do I invest? What do I do with my 401k? And there wasn't that whole thing. This wasn't something that I grew up with. So for somebody that's coming in, again, I've been through that journey. I completely understand how it feels to not know who to turn to. And the scary thing is you could make decisions that end up impacting your legal status and really mess you up big time. So it's not just as simple as, yeah, I'm going to get fined. It could impact your legal status, which we don't want. So it does really help if you work with somebody that's been through the same journey as well.
Found it. So, one of my oldest daughters is a Star Trek fan. And one of the things that you had written about is what you called your Prime Directive. So could you tell me a little bit more about your Prime Directive? Because I don't think it's exactly the same as it is inside of Star Trek.
That's true. So in the Star Trek world, the Prime Directive is don't interfere with other lives or other lifestyles, all these cultures that you meet. And the captain that everybody knows, you never go past that. You don't break it. So the way I look at it and the way I applied it in my life and the way I talk to my prospects and clients about applying to this is, let's figure out what is that one thing that's so important in your life that you need to achieve, and that we're going to have what I think some people have called relentless focus on for however long it's going to take, and we'll do everything we can towards that one item. So let me give you an example. When I came in and I learned what I needed to do to stay in the country as far as getting my work visa, for the next 2, 3, 4 years, my Prime Directive was, I have to get this work visa. So everything I do, every decision I make, I have to be looking at it through the lenses of what do I have to do to get the work visa. And so I did everything that I needed to do. And sure enough, I got the work visa. So in everybody's lives, in everybody's life journeys, we need to find that one thing that you really want to achieve. And we make that your Prime Directive.
I know that you used to work in tech. And my experience of tech, because I grew up, I was in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley for 20 something years. So I know a lot of people kind of came from different countries to work in the United States. Do you find that there are different industries where there's a lot of foreign-born immigrants and foreign-born individuals and foreign-born families? That would be a good person to reach out to you. Is just like, if you're in this industry, I'm foreign-born, Jane's my girl.
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that I was in the tech industry actually for 17 years. And that's when I completed my whole visa journey, went from the work visa to green card to being a citizen. So you do find in the tech industry, that's probably where we have the majority of people coming in. And most of them, again, majority of them come in on H-1B visa or L visa. Those are the most common visas. There are a few others, but those are the most common visas. These are people who are really highly educated. They got great credentials. But of course, they're coming into a country where everything is completely different. And so I find when I work with folks in the tech industry, we're dealing with, I may be here for 3 years, I may be here for 6 years, I may get a green card, I may not get a green card, I may end up having to go home. And a lot of them are working in the startup economy, so a lot of startup companies. And so I'm seeing a lot of equity compensation type of issues. So I saw all types of stock options. So it's really been an interesting area to work in, where somebody's on a visa, they have some stock options and they don't know what to do with it. And I'm finding those are some really challenging but interesting cases as well. So if you're in the tech industry, you're on a work visa, you got stock options, call me.
Got it. So as we're getting close to wrapping it up, I just, this is kind of a fun question that I like to ask everybody. Is there a song that is the Jane anthem for where you are financially or your journey financially?
Yes, and this comes from thinking through my whole journey. I came in here to pursue education. I got into the computer industry. I loved it, but it didn't feel right. And I really wanted to work with people. And I ended up now moving into the industry that we're in. So the song that comes to mind, it's just 2 words. It's Let It Go, the Disney Let It Go. You know the song that I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Let it go and pursue your financial industry journey, freedom journey, whatever that is.
Got it.
But don't ask me to sing.
I will not ask you to swing if you promise me that you won't ask me. So it'll be a like thing. So let me just ask you. So another question that I always ask people is, I always talk to a lot of the women that I work with are very interested in financial freedom. So, but I know that financial freedom means different things to different people. So what does financial freedom mean to you?
For me, it really means being able to work in an industry that I absolutely love, and being able to help people where I really can make an impact day by day. And I find by pursuing those 2 things, the money will follow, if that makes sense. The beauty about this industry is, again, I get to work with all kinds of people. And on top of that, this is something that actually allows me to travel. I equate financial freedom with traveling and being able to pursue whatever it is that I want to pursue, whatever my passion is.
Got it. And I know that one of your passions is going back to your home country and helping out back there. So tell me a little bit about that.
So what I find is, again, it goes back to when they bought me that one-way ticket. My village literally helped me make the move. And when I talk about my village helping, I mean people came together to help my family. So I always feel like I want to pay back. And one of the easiest ways I've found of being able to pay back is educate kids back home. So I have a couple kids I'm putting through school, and it doesn't cost that much, just a little bit of money every month. And it's something I want to pursue. I want to continue doing as long as I can. A couple of us, again, in our village, we've actually gotten together and we've helped renovate some of the schools there, like build some classrooms for them. So all comes back to education and what we can do for the kids back there.
Absolutely. So where can my listeners who are looking for someone who understands the needs and concerns of foreign-born families find you online on social media?
I think the easiest place is go to our website, Algon Financial Advisors, algonfa.com, algonfa.com. They can also
Could you spell Algon for me, please?
Yes, absolutely. Algon is ELGONFA, Algon FA. And by the way, and I can tell you this story, this is the name of a mountain back in Kenya. So algonfa.com. They can also find us on Twitter, Algon Financial, and on Facebook, Algon Financial. But probably the best place is the website.
Right, perfect. So that will be in our show notes for those people who are listening and cannot write that down. So take a look at our show notes and you'll be able to find that. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your journey with our listeners, and for those people who are foreign-born individuals who are listening to this podcast. Do not reach out to me. Reach out to Jane. She's going to be a much better resource. Or you can reach out to me and I'll refer you to Jane. It doesn't matter. But Jane is the person to talk to if you're a foreign-born individual who is trying to navigate and understand what you can and cannot do with the various visas that you have, and what you can and cannot do, what you can do with your stock options. All of those sorts of things are things that Jane should be able to help you with. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for tuning in to the Her Money Story podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, just go in, hit the subscribe button, click all, and you'll be ensured that you're notified of new content as it comes out. And if you're listening to an audio version of this podcast, then please share an honest review on Apple, because more reviews means more awareness of the Her Money Story podcast. And again, if you are a motivated, educated, professional, and entrepreneurial woman who is not foreign-born, who wants personalized, individualized attention to their wealth building efforts, then go to www.chatwithfelicia to get on my calendar to see if we're a fit to work together. Tell me a little bit about where you are financially and what you'd like to work on together. And I'll see you on my calendar soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Her Money Story podcast. Want more from Felicia Gopaul? Then subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss a minute. While you're there, feel free to rate and leave a review. We really appreciate it. And if you're interested in going deeper, visit FeliciaGopaul.com. Thank you again, and we'll catch you in our next episode.